Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Talks with Crystal Skulls. I'm Tanya Marie, your host, and today is going to be a shorter share. Every now and then, I'm going to change things up and have some shorter episodes with just some in the moment information that I feel is prevalent to put out there and see how you feel about it, and also just to make some of the information a little easier to integrate in smaller bites rather than longer episodes. I do have some more interviews coming up with some people that I think will be interesting around conversations of their connections with crystal skulls and other stuff. And as I said, I will be sharing some more shorter episodes, especially around connecting with your crystal skulls, because I know a lot of people have had questions around that, frustrations even, and so I will do those in parts to help with making that easier to digest along the way. But today's is, as I mentioned, a shorter one because it's just taking something that I shared about in episode 1, I believe, when we were first introducing the skulls and talking about why they might be so prevalent at this time and coming out and really speaking to a lot more people than usual. And so it's not necessarily a new piece of information, but it's a layer to the perspective of it. And I love always opening new perspectives. So we'll see what you feel about it too. And I just wanted to say real quick that today I have a different friend. This is not one of the speakers. Her name is Maya, and she is a Sirius quartz skull. She's amazing. Everyone's amazing, of course, but she wanted to be part of this one, and it'll probably make more sense as I talk about what this episode is about. But she's with us, so thank you, Maya. And thank you for all who are tuning in again. And if you're finding this for the first time, you're probably landing here for a reason. And if it doesn't make sense, maybe you can check out some of the other episodes. So on to what I was wanting to talk about and what I felt guided to talk about was this streaming of information that came to me. And it's like a download, that word that people use. I don't know what other word to actually, phrase it with, but that's what it was. And when it came through, it gave me those full body truth chills that I like to call it. And probably some of you get that too. And when that happens, I feel that is speaking to a personal truth. So, anything that I share is not to blanket statement it as a truth for everyone. I always encourage everyone to explore for them how you feel around what someone shares, including myself, and finding your truth in it. But this is just a truth that came to me, and as I mentioned, it's not really a new thing, but it added another dimension that really made so much sense. And it deepened and enriched, I think, my experience with the crystal skulls and my, as I like to call them, cosmic family. So what came through was a new layer to this concept of seeding. So seeding crystals and crystal skulls, but also like that star seeding kind of phrase that we hear people say. And it slightly tweaks some of our understanding around the streaming of energy that's coming through and the communication that's coming through our skulls. So let me back up just for a moment. And this goes back to the last episode when I was talking about ancient energies with Modi Ra, if you did watch that episode 6. And in that episode, I was discussing how the cosmic ones, or galactic beings, if you may, or the multidimensional beings, I don't want to put a phrase there that doesn't speak with you, so place your own there. but how it was I was talking about how they used to work with us over what we think of as time, but of course, that's all relevant because time and space is a whole other thing. But I talked about how they worked with us in these ancient times, in an in-person kind of way. And it was much more direct, and it was taking place at these sacred sites that we know of in ancient civilizations. And that was the purpose of setting up and building these sacred sites, was to create these spaces in these high vortex energy areas in order to have these kinds of communications take place between human and galactic being. And as I said in that episode, this is what was taking place also in the so-called mystery schools or ancient mystery schools, the Egyptian mystery schools in particular, I was speaking about in the last episode, where people that felt called would come to these areas, and the galactic beings would meet there, and a lot of communication and training would take place. And in order to do this, and for them to be able to show up in this earth plane, which is much denser, and to be able to, communicate and have these interactions more directly, they would have to shift their own frequency, and that would use a lot of energy in order to be able to lower their energy to manifest in this realm. And so this would put a time restraint on the amount of time they could be with humans, because it took so much energy to do so. And during these times when they were, the intent, as I understand it, was to support humans in learning how to raise their vibrations and frequencies, and to assist humans in remembering, their origins, and to bring that spirit in body more as an integrated wholeness experience, and to train in the wisdom and knowledge of this ancient alchemy, or cosmic alchemy as you may, so that humans could do more than what their just their physical body alone would allow them to, and that whatever mission they are here for, they would then be able to remember and access, and be able and capable of doing that. And then those, of course, communication lines would remain open, and there would be much more synergy and partnership on a conscious level taking place between human and galactic being. So people still, to this day, so it's not just that this happened in the ancient times and no longer. People do still to this day receive communication, contact, or see appearances, or have more direct kind of relations with these galactic or cosmic ones. But it's not in as prevalent a way as it once was back then, where it was happening in these the civilizations out more in the open. So perhaps the reason might be because things have become more dense here, and humans began to condition out of being open to this way of communing, and put up more barriers to what it would otherwise be a huge contrast to have a being like that in front of you, or the denser energies put in place things that created barriers for our not being able to remember. And so that the way that things were happening dispersed, and had to find other ways and forms to continue, and to try and get around those barriers and fears. And so it came to me in a flash, and it was during connecting with the speakers and my other Crystal Skull Collective, Thought this came in, so it was, felt very pure in the way that it streamed through, because I recognize the information, especially from the speakers, as a very pure channel. And it came in, I believe, in order to make this communication and contact and presence more understood and could be shared with others, to help them to understand how huge of a bigger picture mission is actually taking place, that these skulls even have a bigger or more prominent space in our lives than we might even have seen it as, and that they are helping to make that communication and contact a more efficient channel, so that they can transmit these, the galactic beings can transmit their emanations of themselves still in some kind of form, and open those telepathic channels through some kind of form, and one of them being the skulls, but just not, seeing perhaps them themselves. And so what I saw was that the skulls are now the vessels. In essence, that's what I'm saying. These forms are now the vessels to hold that higher vibrational frequency in a more sustainable way for these beings, so they don't have to come themselves and use energy in other ways. And the skulls, I feel, are being carved just as quickly as people are awakening and being ready for this, and as needed for the seedings of these transmissions. It's happening. So it's like this co-creative process happening between Earth and cosmos, between the multidimensional consciousness and carver, even, especially with a very tuned in carver, and between the person and the skull, because as whichever vessel a person chooses has meaning, and may also depend on what kind of energy is channeling through that you're being drawn to, what information is coming from that individual skull. And this information will be an ongoing telephone line once you do have a skull that is channeling in this way. But there's also room for other forms of consciousness. So it's not just the galactic or cosmic beings. It may be elemental beings. It may be guides of some sort. It may be angelic realm. It could be animal spirits or other earth interdimensional realm type beings. But there's many that can and do this. But this is just one other aspect that I was talking about with the galactic beings, going back to reflecting that mirroring thing that happened ancient time and now through the skulls. And then again, of course, since we are multidimensional, and I already mentioned this as well in the first episode, that they are also channeling aspects of us as well, right? That we ourselves seeded and set up for us to receive when we would be open and ready to it. But, again, time is all skewed, so it's multidimensional aspects of us on a different timeline and in a different dimension that is going on at the same time. So, so there's a lot going on. But again, just to reiterate, this is how I feel that higher frequencies are made more accessible to us now, just like how we can experience these kinds of transmissions via dream time and meditation, for example. Now we can also do that with the skulls, because during dream time and meditation, our frequencies tend to rise and vibrate at a different level, and that makes things easier to access a lot more of the boundlessness during those experiences, and makes it easier to have those kinds of encounters and communications. But again, that usually that may just take place in meditations or dream times. So it's not streaming through in the everyday, fully, conscious, aware moments of life. And the skulls, while yes, they can take you to those meditational spaces as well, it can also be in just the mundane, so-called mundane times of the day if your awareness is just tuned in. So all of these avenues, whether it's the skulls, whether it's crystals, whether it's meditation, dream time, or other ones that I'm not even mentioning, are ways to cut the effort needed by these other aspects of either our multidimensional selves or these cosmic galactic beings, to be able to be here with us and transmit for longer periods of time all of those seeds of cosmic wisdom and training that we are desiring and needing to further our evolution with. So this took things, again, just to a different level, another level of understanding, because we already knew that the beings birthed in the skulls were multidimensional aspects, whether of other beings or ourselves, that we could communicate. But now I saw this as more of a mission, if you may, where the skull vessels are being used specifically as a way, the body or vehicle, to assist these accelerated changes of humanity in a form that maybe more could be ready to work with or more easily work with without these galactic beings needing to make themselves seen, but still communicate and help us to anchor in these higher frequencies. Just like, in the ancient times, or mystery schools at the sites and so forth. So the skulls act as these stand-in vehicles to embody the channel, this stream of coded consciousness, because they're more frequency capable as a match, I think, to hold these vibrations for us now and to anchor them. And this could help more people to accept it or be ready for it, because it cuts that huge contrast out of having, a being appear before you. That could either create like a distraction or even a fear, and then a barrier, which would cut it off completely once, if something almost traumatized fears you that you're not ready for, you can shut down that part of you. A lot of times we do that with our gifts, even. If something happens when we have like a psychic experience at a young age and it's not supported, or some trauma happens around it, we shut it down completely, and then it can be hard to access again. So this cuts that contrast away and that potential for such a huge kind of fear block to potentially happen. And the skulls feel like they may be a softer approach, although still for some people that they're going to be a challenge. And again, that may be because it's just not for them. There are so many other ways one can access information. This channel of the skulls is just for particular, people that are ready, just like in the times of the ancient mystery schools and at these ancient civilization sites, those who were called for that particular purpose would be. And there's no right or wrong or better or worse with that. It's just part of someone's path and the way they go about that. So the skulls can be a softer approach for those who would be called to this, who have it seated in them as their mission to be part of this kind of an ongoing communication line. So that helps with breaking down, some of those challenging judgment barriers around it, or the conditioning that might block this connection altogether, and help it not to be such a contrast to have to deal with and get over that hump of. So you just you can just focus directly on the communication line rather than having to process what's what's coming before you. So the skulls are giving that extra support and guidance right now to help us to remember our origins, because that's part of what the information is coming in, our abilities and gifts to create that soul embodied authenticity, and even activate the coding within us to support our raising our frequencies and coming more into that co-creative experience of evolutionary shifts that are happening. So I just wanted to share that downloaded guidance that came in. Felt important to just put that out there. Again, not a huge change from what I said before. It's just another element and perspective to it that might open up another dialogue, broaden our perspectives and our relationship to the crystal skulls in a new light, and maybe even deepen and enrich the process or the communication that's happening, because it's even more potentially than what we might have thought it was. So that's all I wanted to share, other than I do have today a message from the speakers. They haven't given one for a little while. I've been working behind the scenes, doing a lot of individually channeled messages for people and energy sessions with the speakers. So they have been focused on, a lot of personal guidance recently. For myself, I've only actually done one channeled message with them. It was short and sweet, but I just wait until things feel right to ask, or see if they have something to say. But a lot of times they just let me know on their own. Same with when I do an individual session for someone else. Like, they tell me when they're ready. It's not I go to them and say, okay, now we're going to do this. They will let me know if they're ready. And they actually want me to prepare also, because my own body, my own vehicle has to be in a certain space and really physical, like in my body, and fluid, and very present. So it's a beautiful experience. But I do have, as I said, a message from them that they want to share, and I always just allow those, as I said, the energies to come as they want to be experienced. It feels like they've been kind of just sitting back while so many energies out in the world have been integrating and coming through. I know for some it's been intense times, so I think they've just been waiting for some of that to sort of settle before coming back on the scene to share something collectively public. They're never about projecting or persuading or predicting, all these P words, but it's really true. They're not here to hand out psychic information and to tell you what to do and to tell you what's going to happen, all that kind of thing. It's really a messaging of coded information and energy to help you to unlock something within you, within each individual, to help you to do that and light that up by your own accord, by your own choices. So there is guidance, but there's a lot of also exploration that they ask of us to feel between their words, because not always are their words just straightforward, but are sometimes riddled. And it's like a treasure map, this quest that you go on to uncover the layers and let it really percolate and integrate and just sit with it. And so that's what we're going to do right now. Let's just take a moment take a deep breath, and I'm going to go ahead and read what their message is to end out today's episode. Okay? Like the stars twinkle across the night sky, this our welcoming of illuminated pulse to be with you once again. We feel your frustration and concern about the many ways in which your world is unwrapping the thickness that's been shoveled upon you. You find it hard to breathe at times from being the rubble of fallen trials that crumble. Now, let me reread that because I want to get these words perfect. I'm going to start over actually because let's clear this energy again. I felt something needs to clear. I really want to get the words right because the words they say I transcribe exactly as they put it, and I don't want to be changing them. So I'm going to start from the beginning. Luckily, we didn't get into very far. So here we go again. Like the stars twinkle across the night sky, this our welcoming of illuminated pulse to be with you once again. We feel your frustration and concern about the many ways in which your world is unwrapping the thickness that's been shoveled upon you. You find it hard to breathe at times from below the rubble of fallen trials that crumble by their own undoing. We cannot do the undigging for you, but assure you there are those of you close to surfacing. And when you do, the breath you take will feel like the first, as it will be in fact from the air of another era you have awakened. Of course, we don't know time as you think it to be, so these words are only from the you who operates in this space to understand. Take the many hands that reach deep into the soil of the past, for the you of the future is one of these many hands who has walked the path before. While the two of you meet, you realize you had nothing to fear, for this is not a trek of unknown spaces. It is one of familiar faces and the many celebrating rites of passage your true breath awakens. Once merged, your strength will surpass that of anyone who would rather hold you back. Listen to the calling under night's watch of falling into the weightlessness of astral travels. What you call sleep, we would say, is buoyancy of spirit, and therefore these in-between hours are necessary to receive that which cannot enter your day-to-day, at least not yet. Tend to your physical, even though it will not be the same, for you need its temple to incubate the ark of truth within unfurling. Do not be fooled or thrown off course by anything you see in coming days that tries to leach to pieces crumbling within. Stay the course, stand together, follow the true pulse that never asks of you anything but to be. No matter who, the true voice is one that does not rein you in, nor cause you fear, nor takes away your pulse to tone by choice of heart's will. Let these words and what's between sink into the marrow of your existence here. Look to the starlit sky when in doubt, and the twinkle will be a wink to your quandary. Thank you. I'm glad I took that moment. Sometimes we need an extra pause and ever more presence, and then we can really align with the energies and be with what's wanting to come through. And I do want to do these messages, what they need. I want to give them their space and their time. So I hope that today's episode might open up a new dialogue for you or something. I don't know. But it felt important to share, and the message, there's some powerful beauty in the speaker's message that I'm also sitting more with since it just streamed through just a day ago. So thank you again for being here, for tuning in, for having an open heart, for your courage to be here at this time, to be one of these stewards or guardians of crystal skulls, if that's what you're doing, or anything that you're doing in a conscious, aware way to further humanity in this evolutionary shift that we're experiencing and creating together. Until next time, as always, may all possibilities be open to you, and sending so much love from my heart to yours in love and creative magic. I'll see you next time. I look forward to it as always.